Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, we revisit the Face-Off series where we blind two whiskeys that are very similar and see if we can pick out a winner. This is usually David and Goliath, and it is today. Run the video. Alright then folks, thank you for joining us for another new episode of the Whiskey Cove, and we will be facing off these two whiskeys against each other. We are revisiting this series. We haven't been doing this series for a little while here, but people liked it, so we're kind of bringing it back a little bit here. And we try to do a bit of a David and Goliath. We try to get a whiskey that we might think it can be able to beat out maybe a more expensive, hard to find whiskey. So today we have Weller Special Reserve, but it's not just any Special Reserve, it is a Special Reserve. This is a single barrel version. And then we also have Weller Single Barrel in all of its glory. So yes, these Weller Special Reserves are the single barrels are harder to find, but they are starting to come out a little bit more. So you might be seeing these a lot more. You'll definitely see these a lot more than seeing this one. If you want to try and find this one outside of running into it for MSRP, you're gonna be paying huge sums of money, I think $400 or $500. I managed to pick this up for MSRP at a local liquor store here, where they had a barrel full of like 200 bottles. I've seen this about 3 times this year in Colorado, so it's definitely there if you're looking for it, especially in the state of Colorado, but maybe even in other states too. So these have already been pre-poured. I do not know which one is which. I will move these bottles off to one side, and this doesn't necessarily indicate which glass is which, because I don't know which glass is which, and I'm just moving these off to the side. They have been mixed up by my beautiful wife. We will call this glass 1, and we will call this glass 2. We will start with your left and then move into your right here, and then we'll probably just come together and nose them together. So let's put that one off to one side. So glass 1 here. There's a little bit of those typical Weller flavors here, but it is subdued somewhat. Kind of has like a little bit of like a lemon poppy seed vibe going on, and kind of the creamy vanilla that you would normally associate with a lot of Buffalo Trace products. We are using the Whiskey Cove Space High Taster for today. If you would like one of our premium glassware, go over to the whiskeycove.square.site. The link is down below where you can find some glasses at excellent prices. But again, very lemony, a little bit of that savory note. Not as much wood here. And I will say, not much ABV either. One of these is 45% ABV, and I believe the other one is 48.5%. So not much between them. But all in all, somewhat flat. A little bit of wood, maybe. Okay, let's go in for a taste on glass 1. Definitely a very easy drinker. That lemon note comes through. I get a little bit of like fresh cut grass there as well. A little bit of wood, some tannins, no spice. Maybe like a caramel corn note, a butterscotch sweetness there as well. But in all, a little thin and a little flat. How flat? Well, maybe just like a can of soda that you kind of left out all day and you come back to it. It's just sweet and flat. Kind of like that in a way. I do want to go in for one more taste here to give this whiskey every opportunity to succeed here. Let's go again. There is definitely a little bit of a drier note there. There's not much balance with this whiskey. You get that little sweetness, the butterscotch sweetness up front. You get a little bit of heat there, and it kind of just falls away on the back end. Kind of reminds me of something like a Wild Turkey Long Branch, if you've had that. It's quite approachable, quite sweet in the beginning, but then it kind of just falls away and turns into nothing. That was glass number 1. We will cleanse our palate and then move into glass number 2 here. This has some similar notes to glass 1 with like that sweetness and those vanillas. But there's something else going on there. I'm not really picking up much lemon. Maybe more like a hazy apple juice. The ones with like all the haze in them, where you see around like Halloween and the harvest, and you can't see through them. They're so thick. Kind of has that appley pulp note going on in this. And then staying in that sort of time of the year, maybe some apple pie, kind of cinnamon and nutmeg there as well. It's very full flavoring in a glass, I guess is probably the best way to describe that. That apple pie and kind of custard cream note. I would say just off the nose, there's a little bit more going on in this one. It has more of a body. Not wood, no heat either. Let's go in for a taste here on glass 2. Glass number 2 definitely has a little bit more of a kick to it. More mouthfeel, more spice, a little more heat as well. It's not an overwhelming spice. It's definitely a much more of like a wheater spice. Sometimes with like Maker's Mark, you get a little bit of that wheat spice, like that grassy, anise almost kind of spice. And that's more so on this one. You're getting some of those bacon spice notes coming through as well. And kind of like, again, the like apple pie, pulpy apple note is there, with some creme fraiche and custard, like a British custard, if you know what that is. Nice little bit of pastry there as well. Let's go in for one more taste on glass 2 here. This whiskey, number 2 or glass 2, definitely does have a longer finish. And that's definitely in part to that spice note, but it's also, it does have a little bit more of that wood, a little bit more of that tannin note, like sawdusty kind of musty oak note. And it's quite rich with the sugar and the sweetness that's in this glass. That definitely does pull it out and makes it last a little longer. It's a little more richer on the palate than just a general mouthfeel. I really like that apple pie bacon spice note. It comes together really well in this glass. But overall, if we're just talking about these 2 glasses, it's somewhat underwhelming. I would say glass number 1 just noses like it's had a half an ounce of water put into it. It's very thin on the nose, and then just bouncing back between them. How thin the glass number 1 is, it elevates glass 2 even more so. I'm kind of enjoying this a little bit more off the kind of coattails of glass 1. Glass 1 is a little lighter when you bring them together, and a little thinner as well. And it kind of is like that in the flavor. And I think that should probably tell you which glass here is the winner. 1 was just completely flat. Very disappointed by this show, and I'm not sure which one it is at this point, but very disappointed. And this one, maybe because it's up against glass 1, is coming off actually really quite nice and flavorful. And it wasn't until I went back to glass 1 that I was really able to notice a lot more of those other flavors come through. The apple pie note, those pastry notes were fantastic. So let's find out which one's which, shall we? A, that is going to be, okay, and that is going to be Weller Special Reserve, the single barrel. So that makes today's winner Weller Single Barrel. So I've talked about this blind a lot lately here on the channel, and I've always talked about it in this frame. Why look for this $500 bottle when you can pick up a Weller Special Reserve single barrel for $30, $40 if you can find it? Because isn't it exactly the same thing? Weller single barrel, Weller single barrel. Well, I think today showed that it's not. And I think maybe I need to apologize a little bit to Weller Single Barrel because they were a decent show in here today. However, for $500, $600, $700, was it that decent? No, it's still not worth that crazy money. However, that's not Buffalo Trace's MSRP. Buffalo Trace's MSRP is about what, $70 on this bottle? So, judging it for $70, I would still prefer Weller 12 Antique Full Proof c.y.p.b over this bottle, so it does fall at the bottom of that list. However, today kind of restored my faith a little bit in this bottle. I can maybe go back to this bottle and have a few more sips and probably enjoy it quite a bit. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Moral of the story is that Weller Special Reserve single barrel isn't the same as single barrel Weller. Weller single barrel is much better than the Special Reserve. So if you can get this bottle, definitely pay MSRP for it. Of course, you would be a crazy person not to. And really disappointed by this bottle. I was expecting bigger things. However, the blind tells all. So thanks for watching as we drink through the world's whiskies, one glass at a time. Cheers.